So we're going to begin the Thursday, June 10th, 2021 Town of Monroe Planning Board Workshop meeting. Noreen, could you do the roll call of who's here? Mike?
Anthony Vaccaro. Lisa McQuaid is absent. Bonnie Franson.
Here.
Jason Sawinski is absent. Jeff Manson.
Here.
John Allegro.
Here.
And Pat Shea.
Here.
Thank you.
And with that, we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. I'm going to point out the fire exits, one in front of me to the left, one in front of me to the right, one out this door on this side, and then the main entrance where everybody came in. With that, we will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance. So is someone here present for Mountain View Shul? You are? Okay. All right, why don't you all come up? We'll just give a few more seconds for Jason to... Oh. All right, just hold.
Which one? You tell Isaac 7:30, he'll be here at 8:30.
So, Noreen, just note for the record that Jason is now in attendance.
Yes, I am.
All right, so with that, John, do you want to give us an overview of what's
Sure.
being proposed?
Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. We're before you with an application at 277 Mountain View Road, or Mountain View Drive. Mountain View Drive is up off of Seven Springs Road, adjacent to the village of Kairos Joel. It had undergone a site plan approval in 2016, 2017 through the building department. The property is about 1.5 acres in size. It's located in the SR10 zoning district. In 2016, the application was to construct a shul there, which is on the map, if you see here. There's an existing single-family dwelling in the front. That's where the rabbi currently lives. And in the back, listed as a one-story metal building, that's an existing shul that was reviewed and approved through the town building department in 2016. Constructed operational, I think, early 2017, somewhere in that range. That shul is approximately like 2,800 square feet in size. It's a one-story building. And currently, there's an access drive that comes up the left side of the property, goes by the house, by the shul, and opens up into a parking area. That shul was for approximately 54 congregants at the time. The property is serviced by village water from Kairos Joel and a sewage disposal system currently, which is shown kind of on the right side of the shul with those long linear lines that you see as like little boxes. Right? Yeah, correct, right there. Oh, sorry. So quiet in here. So we're before you at this time to basically construct a new shul, move out of the one-story metal building, keep it for storage, and construct a new shul in the rear of the property, approximately 5,952 square foot footprint, and expand the parking as you see around the building. The proposed building would be for 105 congregates now. The congregation has grown significantly over the last 5 years. They require more space for the sanctuary. They're requiring a mikveh, a library, and some prayer rooms larger than what their capacity currently meets. So what we're proposing is that 62-foot by 96-foot footprint in the back, access drive around, and proposed additional parking spaces around on the right and around the back. We're proposing 35 spaces, 33 are required by the code. Site will also be continue to be serviced by water from the village, and there will be a sewer main extension up Mountain View Drive through Orange County Sewer District Number 1. We will abandon the on-site septic system as part of this application. Through the construction of the shul, the bulk table, we meet all the requirements except for currently lot coverage. It was 50% in the zone. We're currently at 54% as it's shown. But I've seen through Sean's comments, I guess we'll get through it in a little bit, there might be some additional requirements that we might have to go through, but I'll take a look at that. I wasn't familiar quite with that section just yet. That's the application in a nutshell. It's the same congregation. They basically need more room. Yep.
All right, so with that, Sean, why don't we first go to your comments?
So as John noted, the use is a special use permit under 5713Q is where it's regulated in the code. One of the items that John was mentioning regarding some of the requirements in that section of that 13Q is that the application has to be, or the use has to be on a major collector road, which it's not, as major collector road is defined in the comprehensive plan. So that may require variance from the ZBA. In addition to the lot coverage, as John had discussed. We went over the water and sewer. John, you said the well and septic will be abandoned for the one-story metal building. Will it be abandoned for the house as well?
Correct.
Okay.
All uses, yes.
Okay, so that'll be a sewer main extension, not a lateral, since there'll be more than one user on that?
Correct.
Okay. So that'll require DEC approval? So I had a question regarding the single-story metal building as to what that use was. Back in, John had said an approval was given in 16 and 17. I had Mark's file. In 2015, there was an application for a shul, approximately, was it 9,000 square feet at that time? I saw a sketch plan.
Maybe
Oh.
there was like a huge building proposed.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then I saw the application was withdrawn, and I hadn't seen that one-story metal building on it. So I'm just curious as to how that.
Yeah, apparently, back then in the code, there was a requirement that allowed the building inspector to approve site plans if it was below a certain capacity and/or square footage.
Okay.
So this went through the building department, ultimately through your office as well, and then that.
Did it? Because I saw that the application was withdrawn. I think it was like 1503 was the application.
I think there was an application to the planning board, and then they withdrew that and went with the smaller building in the
Okay.
back.
I'll double check with.
So just to clarify, John, you said that a plan had been approved?
By the building department, not by this board.
Okay.
By the building department.
Okay, and then it's a question whether in fact it was approved if it had been withdrawn, or if the withdrawal was from the planning board.
That's correct.
Okay.
My records show that there was an application before the planning board for a 9,000 square foot building on this property with the metal building not there. So since then, that metal building was constructed. So the question was, how did the metal building get constructed without planning board approval?
There was a provision, I forget, I think it's removed now.
Yeah.
But at the time, there was a provision that there was a certain threshold that the building department could approve
Okay.
plans.
All that. I think we need to confirm that in fact happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So John had mentioned the parking. I think there's just a slight revision needed. I still think there's adequate parking for the proposed structure. Since I didn't know what the use was for the metal building before tonight, we'll have to just evaluate, make sure there's enough parking for that building. We'll have to talk to Ashley whether or not a commercial access maintenance agreement should be proposed for the two separate buildings. I don't know. Regarding the topography across the site, there's a 38 to 40 feet from the southeast corner to the northwest corner on the site, just noting that it's, somewhat difficult. We'll need input from Curious Joel as a water provider and Orange County for the sewer. The EAF notes Historic Preservation Office as a potential interested or involved agency, so we'll need input from them. We're within 500 feet of Curious Joel boundary, so we'll need referral to county planning as well as the village. It's an unlisted action, so the board may wish to circulate this evening. And public hearing will.
Thank you. Ashley, do you have comments?
Okay, so for purposes of seeker, it'd be an unlisted action. As Sean had noted, the owner's endorsement, so the name that was filled out for that, it's not the same as the name that's on the county records. There's some spelling, I think, differences. It's Moses Schetzel, and it's spelled differently than, I'm sorry, that's what's on the application, and then Moshe,
okay.
Shtesl, is on the property records. So if you could change the application to reflect that owner and the proper owner's endorsement. And also it indicates the applicant's BYN community room. I don't know if it says it's a corporation, but it doesn't seem like it's an actual entity on the application. I don't know if you want to just have it in the name of, I think you're calling it the project name or whatever that is, but the name of the applicant, I was confused by that because BYN community room doesn't appear to be a corporation.
Okay, I'll check with the applicant.
And if you could also, the entity disclosure form, the signature block wasn't filled out completely. That needs to be filled out and signed as well. The plan, there's a correction deed in the county clerk's records that should be noted on the plan. It's book 14390, page 1989. The EAF should identify, in addition to the ZBA, it should identify the village and the DEC and also Orange County Environmental Facilities and Services as involved agencies. I think it lists the ZBA and Orange County Sewer District 1, but it's actually the Facilities and Service Department, and the DEC needs to be added, as well as the village. So typically what the board asks for when there's a special use permit is if you could submit a narrative, excuse me, a narrative going through all of those standards in 5713Q and identifying, if you comply, if you're seeking a variance, just that kind of thing, just setting forth in one comprehensive narrative document whether you comply or you're seeking a variance and all that. Also be architectural review details submitted, since this board will have architectural review authority. A tree plan as well that are being disturbance.
All right, thank you. So, board members, who has questions or comments about this application?
I have a question. In this zone, does this type of accessory use require that it be attached to the dwelling or part of the dwelling?
An accessory use? Special use? I'm not aware if it requires that it be attached to the dwelling.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the special use standards for that.
What section are we talking about?
5713Q.
5713, I'll navigate there.
This use is a place of, but there's gathering places.
All right, so this is, so we definitely need a narrative, because I think we have to understand what's going to happen in both buildings. So is the one remaining a single-family residence for the rabbi, and then there'll be a place of worship then behind it?
Correct.
I'd like to get a sense of, and if we can get, I don't know if they've created any kind of floor plans.
Not yet.
Not yet. So to get a sense of how the spaces are being used, because it speaks to the parking requirements. So I don't know how many people are actually going to walk there, since it's there in the neighborhood, and how many are actually going to drive there. And I think that depends in part on how the building functions, if there's sufficient parking on the property. But I think the narratives are always especially useful just to get a sense of how this will operate, you know, is it every day? Is it primarily certain days? You know, that kind of a thing. Also just to understand sort of what we need in terms of the building itself, space around it, emergency access. Again, I think depends in part on you know, how the building lays out. So just quickly, for everybody's benefit, this is subsection Q in 5713. These are the individual standards for special uses. So we have a place of worship, and so there's a maximum floor area ratio that applies to all principal and accessory buildings and structures. So I think, Sean, you raised that. We need to get that calculation. We have the development coverage. You shall be located on a lot with no less than 1 acre. All structures and parking shall be screened from adjacent properties, so we'll need to see some screening. Our parking shall be screened, again, to show screening. Parking requirements shall be determined based on peak attendance, so again, that gets to sort of understanding what the operation will be. Place of worship shall maintain frontage on a major collector. So, you know, there was a question raised as to what is required, whether it's a variance or not. All structures shall be in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood and be of similar design aesthetic. No parking or loading shall be permitted between the structure and any street line, although drop-off is allowed. It says where the structure is a single-family detached dwelling, owner or tenant must reside on the site, but in this instance, it's a separate structure, so I don't know how we apply that or if it even applies.
Well, and the owner is residing there. He's the rabbi.
It's okay, yeah. Structure must comply with New York State Uniform Code. Exceptional waivers to New York State Uniform Code over the which the planning board has no jurisdiction. Planning board shall have discretion to waive any number of these conditions to the extent necessary. So I think we need to make a determination, speaking, you know, to waivers where, for instance, the lot coverage is specified in the specific special use permit standards, whether or not we have the ability to waive it versus whether it has to go off, you know, for a variance.
So for this specific section of the code, you have the ability to waive, but there is a standard that's involved. They have to show that it would be a substantial burden on the religious practice if that wasn't waived. Or the variance is another route, which would be an area variance based on that standard.
So we would have to find that, make a determination whether by not allowing the waiver, making sure that it isn't placing some kind of burden on the applicant and the functioning of specifically the place of worship. Otherwise, if that's not the case, then it has to go off for a variance then, I would think.
It could be either way, or the applicant could choose to seek a variance instead of asking for a waiver.
Okay. Within a residential zoning district, special permit is allowed an additional 20% lot coverage over what is otherwise allowed for the single-family detached dwelling without or with central sewer facilities, depending on whether the use is served by central sewer. So, another consideration.
They're utilizing.
Which they're utilizing.
Section, yes.
So this is on top of it.
Mhm.
Okay. So with that, again, board members, any questions, comments?
Just on the entity disclosure, somebody should be listed in Section B. I mean, there has to be a controlling individual, whether it's the landowner who's the rabbi, or on our application, Isaac Walter is listed as the name of the responsible officer, although there's no title for Mr. Walter there. But somebody's got to either be the beneficial owner or the controlling owner of the entity that's applying to us. It's not an individual who's applying, so we just need to know who we're dealing with, and that's what that section does.
Yeah, understood. We'll get that cleared up.
Okay.
I think from my perspective, I would like to get a sense of what the building's going to be, because there is a restriction of 35 feet, 2.5 stories. What are we thinking in terms of stories? We don't really have a sense of the building at this point.
No.
Yeah.
Not yet, but my take on it is there'll be a basement.
We need it for our minutes, trust me.
It'll be a basement because of the grade change that Sean was referencing. It'll be a basement on the front and then first floor. So probably 2 stories right now.
Okay.
Until we sit down and go with the architect, and we'll refine that. But that's what we're thinking.
So Ashley, I don't know if you mentioned this already. Does this, because it's a non-residential use, require architectural review?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So obviously we'll have to see something in that regard. I have not at this point had an opportunity to get out to the site, so I'd like to. Quick question, it looked like from the aerial, John, that there's a pathway that's extending already to the back here and maybe connecting into this development. And I wasn't sure if that's being something that's going to be retained or added to the plan going forward, whether it's needed.
It's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, most of it's where the building is, so I'm sure they'll want to retain that connection. But
Yeah.
we'll add that.
Yeah, so I saw that the parking kind of went up there, and I don't know if that's actually, it doesn't look wide enough, but if that's a walking path, or if you actually could get on a road or not.
Oh, that would be a walking path.
That's just a whack, and that,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, because it
So
doesn't, I
nothing
think
beyond.
it just leads to the back of that condominium.
okay. And then, so talk a little again about this metal structure. So you envision building the large building, and the metal building would be there at the same time, and then it would come down? So
No, it would remain,
you're proposing this on top of
correct.
the one, the one isn't going to replace the other?
No.
Okay,
No, they would like to continue to utilize that for storage of the
Would it be
use of
used
the
just
shul.
for storage, or is it going to be used still as the
No, it'd be
another
storage. It'd
shul?
be basically a large shed storage area. It's a lot of money that they put into it, so they just don't want to take it down.
so I think on the site plan, right now it says one-story metal building, it says wood frame dwelling. It'd be useful just to say, future storage for the wood frame dwelling, single-family dwelling, to make sure we're noting the uses that are being allowed there, or somehow listing it otherwise.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
So I think at this point, I'd like to get out there. I know some board members might want to get out there. It's pretty easy. we could go to the site. I don't know that we have to do a site visit. It's pretty small and it's developed. But I think I'd like to hold off on doing any circulations until we've had a chance just to get out there. And then we could do a circulation next
Yeah, and I'd
month.
like to clean up, get the bulk table and address those zoning issues.
Yeah, yeah. And I think,
With respect to the site visit, you will need to submit a site visit signed by the owner of record, because the name on that was incorrect, so.
okay. So
Just to have that
technically,
in.
we don't really
So,
yet
yeah, you should wait for that.
have authorization. Okay, so the sooner we get that, we can get out there.
Okay.
All right. Anything you want to raise, John?
Not at this point. No,
Okay.
we just put the sketch together, so this was good.
Okay. And is that someone a representative here for this application or not? Behind you, someone came in?
Oh, yes, Isaac,
Okay. Isaac, did you want to say anything, or you're good?
snuck in.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Let's first get the authorization, and then maybe, Noreen, we could circulate. I mean, if people want to go out together, they can. It's just that this isn't like walking the woods, so it's not as difficult to
Yeah,
maneuver
it's-
around the
you
site.
can- You drive right to the back, and
Yeah.
it's pretty simple that way.
Is there any time that we shouldn't be there?
It's better if you know, like this, I can be there and I can explain you exactly the property.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering from a worship perspective, is there a time when we should be careful not to be out there?
No,
Doesn't matter?
Saturday night.
Saturday night, try and not be there.
Saturday, yeah.
Okay. Or else we can come and participate. Okay. All right. Thank you,
Yeah, thank you.
and we'll see you next month.
Okay, and I'll get you that site form.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is DG Management.
Oh, she said, see you next month.
For this one, yeah. Okay. This one should be brief. I know you want to get rid of me. I understand. All right.
These plans are huge.
It's either small plans, more sheets, big plans, less sheets. All right.
All right, so John, why don't you fill us in on what's transpired since the last time you were here?
Sure, I'll just give you a brief update. We are currently working on finishing up the traffic analysis that we'll have. We're finishing up our SWIP, our stormwater plan. We do have an updated landscaping plan that came in. It's not part of the submission, but that has been finished, so that'll be part of the next submission. We did update the visual cross-section profiles.
Okay,
That was part of the submission, adjusting, cleaning up the elevations, cleaning up the grades. Those will probably change again because our landscape architect has some ideas of what he would like to see. So there might be some tinkering again with those. That'll be part of the next submission.
Sorry, John, that was a great, the landscape,
Both.
okay.
Yeah, the landscaping wasn't part of this, and when he finished the plan, he has some possible changes to those sightline profiles. Okay. The grading plans we're working on in conjunction with those sightline profiles and the landscaping plan, and the wells were drilled. Both wells were drilled. One well, according to the well driller, is very, very good. It's close to 100 gallons a minute.
Wow.
The second well was drilled, and they only went halfway down because the machine broke. He's around 10 to 15 gallons a minute right now. So they have to go in and just finish that well.
did you hit a water main?
I was shocked. Those wells, you don't see those wells very often.
No, maybe you hit a fracture.
Maybe, but that was from the initial pump.
Okay.
But they still have to go through, do the pump testing and the quality. So that number might come down a little bit.
Okay.
But even if it comes from 100 to 80, it's a great producing well.
Yeah.
The town's hydrogeologist has been involved throughout. I think he's also been up there, and he's been part of the process the whole time. So I think those, I mean, I went through like 6 items, which is the meat of the whole thing, but
Yes.
I think if we can wrap all these up, we'd like to submit those for the July meeting for ultimately, your review, and hopefully go through the seeker process at that time.
Okay, so we're going to get additional information as far as, who's the landscape architect?
Steve Esposito.
Okay. So he's going to come up with some ideas for the landscaping, for ensuring we're going to have a nice kind of
Correct. And I think
buffer
he's
from-
been speaking with Karen.
Karen Art?
Yes.
Perfect.
So they've been, those two have been communicating as well.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know to what extent, and I'm sure if they're out in the field, they'll know, how much topsoil, how much overburden is there in terms of soil to be able to plant. I don't
Okay.
know, depending on where you are on the site.
And then the other thing, I don't know if, because I wasn't at the last meeting, we did add all the trees, the existing trees that are on the property or on the property lines. There'll be a chart now that's added to the plan that basically shows size and species to that. So that'll be there as well.
Great, and then we can get that to our group to go take a look at then.
Correct.
Okay. So I guess we'll go to Sean. Do you want to go through your comments, please? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
One other thing. We did attend the ZBA meeting last month.
Okay,
The ZBA didn't have the resolution that your board had prepared for the yield count, nor did they have the letter, I guess, that the board prepared to send. They were questioning, and I wasn't present, my partner was present, but they were questioning length of cul-de-sac and why they shouldn't have to grant a variance for that. So I just wanted to let you guys know that they
Right.
were questioning that. We're providing them with a resolution, and then Ashley's letter, or not Ashley's letter, but the board's letter that was crafted back to them, and will be before them at the end of this month.
so I know, I don't know that if they did or didn't receive the letter. Did they receive the letter?
Yes.
Okay. And,
Actually, 2 letters, 2 different times that Ashley had drafted the letter.
right,
They had those letters and they had the resolution too. Mr. Murphy, who was the chairman, was looking for more information. And I believe there was a letter drafted from David McCartney. He sent it to Ashley, I believe.
there might have been, I know that there was some correspondence about the cul-de-sac question.
Yeah, so the ZBA is asking the planning board for clarification on that item. I don't know if you want to discuss that now, or, so, as John had mentioned, it was in the maximum yield resolution. The board had decided that they would, when reviewing the conventional plan, grant a waiver for that cul-de-sac length. That waiver is under the subdivision, I think it's A 6529.
And the subdivision regulations? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, A 65-29. And it's my understanding that this has been done in the past as well, for other subdivisions, I believe. And that was set forth in the resolution, so I would suggest if the board was okay with it and wanted to authorize me to simply respond back with a letter explaining what had happened, that the waiver was granted. The highway superintendent was consulted before the board decided to ultimately grant that waiver, and I could send a copy of, I know it was sent already, but just to cross all the Ts and dot all the Is, I could send a copy of the resolution, the maximum yield resolution again as well.
So they also raised the diameter of the cul-de-sac as a question, that it didn't meet it. However, it's over the required diameter. So I'm not sure why they raised that as an issue, but
So I could include that then in the letter as well.
please.
Yeah, I don't want to add to the letter, but the other thing that I don't think they understood that the planning board had the authority under the code to grant the waiver. I think was one of the sticking points.
And I think all related to that was the fact that we asked the highway superintendent because we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to waive something that the superintendent
Correct.
might have issue with in
Correct,
terms of access.
This board has the power to do that, and I think the zoning board didn't understand that you did.
Yeah, I was going to go to the subdivision regulations, but I don't know why I'm not finding them here.
Well, so A6529
All the way at
reads,
the bottom.
Yeah, see here how it's
Oh, wow.
ending? Unless, let's see here, maybe something's getting cut off. Right, so why don't you,
so-
because I'm not finding it here.
I mean, A6529 simply reads, "The planning board may, in appropriate cases, waive any of the foregoing requirements not otherwise required by law." And I think it's 6527 that lists all the different requirements that were, foregoing. And the cul-de-sac length is one of those. So, I mean, just kind of, it follows through. Here's the requirements, here's what, we have the authority to waive it, we had the resolution, and we waived it as part of the resolution.
So the letter from the ZBA, it did cite to the cluster regulations, and perhaps there's some, that might be where the issue lies, that I could include in the letter that when the planning board reviews a conventional subdivision plan for purposes of the cluster, it's reviewing it as if this is the plan before it, all the conventional subdivision provisions apply, and that's why that's an option.
What section was that again, Jeff?
6529, I'm just looking for what section gives the, hang on, let me jump back.
Oh, that's the waiver provision.
That's the waiver provision.
Where's the
but-
cul-de-sac? No,
Yeah.
it's in here somewhere.
Oh, yeah, where was it?
Maybe under street and highway?
Cul-de-sacs, yep,
There it is.
21F.
So maximum length should be 500 feet. Minimum radius for the right-of-way at the turnaround should be 50 feet, and the outside curb radius shall be 40 feet. So, and we did have discussion over this, with the
Oh, yeah,
board. This was definitely,
Yes.
this was something that was deliberated.
Correct.
Yeah, so, and then those letters were put together, and I'm pretty sure there was a vote on the recommendation, I believe, ultimately, so,
Yeah, no, we
On
went
the
through,
waiver.
we went through a couple drafts of it, so yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just wanted to keep you informed of what,
okay,
that way we keep connecting with both boards.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't think the red light should be on, so,
Hello?
there you go.
So my question is, even though the planning board has the authority to grant a waiver, is there a basis or reasons for, consideration why that waiver should be granted, and did we go through that accordingly?
Yeah, so Mark had met with John Cherney to discuss it, and John had written a letter saying that he had no objection to.
Yeah, to me, that's not, and I think we discussed this, that's not really a basis. I think a basis for granting a waiver would be establishing some form of hardship for the applicant.
So in the maximum yield resolution, it was discussed the developmental constraints with the property, the topography and the areas that are developable. That's one of the things, that's what it reads in the resolution, was really considered in addition to the highway superintendent's input.
Well, it was a developable, it was
We-
developable for a few lots, but not
This-
15 lots.
This issue was discussed at great length over at least 6 meetings. I had done multiple layouts showing varying ways of accessing the property, and this is how we've arrived at the plan that we have. We went through the process of showing why that waiver was warranted. We went through several iterations of plan. We had the plan from Scunnamunk under the power lines. We had a double cul-de-sac plan. We had a lot coming off of Arico Terrace. There was a lot of iterations that ended up to the plan that was proposed. And before we even get to the property, we're over 400 feet just to get there from any direction. And
Yeah.
we went through that.
And I think
lot.
ultimately, the planning board all weighed in on it, and
Yes.
collectively, the majority said, or determined to waive it. So that was definitely done at the very beginning. I recall it. Jeff is shaking his head.
I think that fairly early in the process, we polled the board informally to determine would the board even consider a waiver, and then we really got into the meat and potatoes and of why we might consider that in this case, and, again, what the issues were, what the options were. We talked about, coming through the other right away off of Scunnamunk, and the pros and cons of that, what it would involve to come in off of Arico Terrace. And part of the decision was, we felt this was the best way to access the property, and
Correct.
again, ultimately, the decision was made in the resolution.
John, did you want to say anything?
Seem to recall voting on this and approving. I don't know if it
I have
was
the
an
resolution. Do you
individual
want to pull it up?
resolution or.
Yeah, if you
I'm
want to
sorry.
send it to me quick. Yeah, I recall that because we passed a resolution, and we did poll the board as part of that. So just to remind everybody, because that's ultimately what should have gone off to the ZBA. Noreen's just smiling. It had.
And I'm not sure if I included it in my letter, so if that's the reason it didn't get there, then I do apologize for that.
All right, so
So do we need an acknowledgement from the ZBA that they reviewed the reasons for why we granted the waiver, so that they, have an understanding?
So here's the whereas. Proposed conventional subdivision would require a waiver of the maximum cul-de-sac length of 500 feet set forth in the subdivision regulations, and after consideration of the property's developmental constraints and the highway superintendent's review, planning board determined that it would permit a cul-de-sac waiver for the conventional subdivision at this site. So, I think those are the reasons. And for me personally, I recall thinking, well, the highway superintendent ultimately has to maintain this, and he was okay with the length of the cul-de-sac. So that was my consideration. And I kind of went back and forth because it was a standard, and it said 500 feet. But at the same time, essentially we have the individual who's responsible for maintaining the town roads that's saying that they don't have an issue. And that there's also precedent in this town, that this is not the first, property with over 500 feet, with a cul-de-sac at the end of it. So for all those reasons, and then, everybody else weighed in on it, collectively, this is where we landed. To be able to get the maximum residential yield. And then, and now this is in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and they're going to do what they're going to do. They're an independent body.
Correct.
And, right.
Correct.
So.
Well, our response back was, it's not what we applied for. So we were just sticking with the variances that we applied for. But this came up, so I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Right, and I won't even, I guess, really, I don't know that it needs to be discussed, if the ZBA thinks something alternative should have happened, I don't know what the course of action is, but it's in front of them. And, that's up to the ZBA attorney and their board to, however they take actions.
Correct.
Right.
I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Could they overturn our decision to waive it, or?
No.
Okay. So what are
No,
we
and
waiting for them to do
The ZBA has the
anything?
ability, so they are the body that's charged with interpreting the zoning law, but they don't interpret the subdivision regulations. That's a different part of the town code. They're limited to the zoning law. So if the board would want, I would ask for a motion to authorize me to draft a letter to the ZBA explaining that the maximum cul-de-sac length was waived, and giving a copy of that resolution, explaining how that relates to the cluster subdivision review, and then also clarifying that the diameter of the cul-de-sac is more than the required minimum.
I'm fine with that. I think it will help them in their deliberations to have the letter. That's explanatory, so I'll make the motion that we have our planning board attorney draft a letter that will go to the zoning board of appeals that will explain the cul-de-sac waiver. May I have a second?
Second that.
Noreen?
Anthony Vaccaro?
Does that require a resolution? I mean, wouldn't you be able to, just poll the board?
Just a motion, yeah, but this makes it clear for the record that the board's authorized me to do this, and I'm not just going rogue and writing to the ZBA on my own.
I mean, do you want to see the letter before it goes out?
If you want that, I could do that as well. I could have it for Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah, I think so long, we can all have an opportunity to take a look at it then before it goes. Sure. So. Oh,
Make the
we
motion
can
on
take
Tuesday.
Motion on Tuesday? Okay. So we will,
Retract.
I guess, yeah, retract withdraw, thank you. It's been a long day. Withdraw my motion, thank you. All right, so I think at this point then, John, was that all you wanted to present?
Yeah, just the other thing, I think it's another one of Sean's comments, just about the lighting.
Okay, so why don't we go through Sean's comments?
I don't really have much that's different than some of the past meetings. Couple bulk table revisions necessary. Minor thing about the drainage collection and that the SWIP will have to be prepared. So Jeff had brought to our attention that the town board on Monday night had a resolution on their opinion for streetlights. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the resolution because the minutes aren't finalized yet, but I just wanted the applicant to be aware of that since they are proposing 3 streetlights at this time. So just to make sure that it's in the, it follows the opinion of the town board.
Well, that's what I would, at the last meeting, I think lighting was discussed. Is it the will of the board, does the board want street lights up there, or you just want to keep it as residential?
I think that's part of the point that the town board has perhaps established a policy of what is going to happen. So Jeff, you were present, I believe.
Yeah, so the resolution basically codifies what they had said earlier, which was streetlights at intersections, streetlights at the end of cul-de-sacs,
Okay.
and beyond that, only where either the highway superintendent or the building inspector felt that they were necessary. So in any other situation, the town would not be providing lights. Now, any particular area, well, they're welcome to form a lighting district, and if they want to have lights, they can have lights. And, the town will work with them on, doing what needs to be done to set up the lighting district. And
Okay, so
So-
for my application, then, I don't have any intersections, so it'll just be one light at the end of the cul-de-sac then?
Is that what's proposed?
I had 3, but if you,
So, yeah, from my perspective, because you're up on this is me, you know me, because you're on top of the hill, I'm going to be cognizant of night sky, I don't want to see lights up on top of a hill, so
and each lot is going to have its own,
they're going to have their own
lamp
lights,
posts,
exactly,
so-
and the houses have lights, and we are still, not necessarily really specifically there, but, we tend to keep a rural ambiance, so I don't have an issue if it's just one light. That's me.
Okay.
And at the end of the cul-de-sac. And then I suspect at the beginning of the road, when you come in, I don't know if there's a light there, and that's in the
it's
village.
in the village.
I just don't recall.
Okay.
I don't know that it wouldn't be considered an intersection.
Yeah, right where, I'm thinking of at Mountain Road.
Oh, all the way down.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
Scunnamunk. I'm just,
Scunnamunk.
typically you have a light because there's an intersection there and then you come in. But that actually road is
It's in the village.
it's in the
Village,
village, and that's a driveway becoming a
Correct,
road because of another subdivision,
correct.
which, so I would think that they would have addressed it, but regardless, it's in the village, so we don't have control over the lights there.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
Sean, other comments?
Just nothing really that is new.
Okay.
So,
And just one other item, if I could.
Okay.
We've never really touched upon sidewalks. Is that something the board would like to see, or we're good? We don't have them on the plan now, but we just
Are a
never-
public improvement, I don't know whether they fall under the required or the permissible, which is something that would either then be required or discretionary, and if it's required, it could be waived.
I don't, I'll check, but I don't know if the village portion has sidewalk.
Are we following any particular road specification? Or I don't even know that we have road specifications here in the town.
Yeah,
Yeah?
Road is being designed for the, pavement thicknesses, curbs, all that.
Okay.
Don't recall if the sidewalks are
Are part of
file, right?
it? Okay.
Yeah, sidewalks are they're mandatory unless waived.
Okay, where are you reading that?
A65-25.1.
25.1.
Are things that we have to go through at some point. If you have them up, if you want to talk about the others as well, that's,
Those items be waived because this is a cluster development, and I'm just asking some preemptive questions. I realize we're going to be going over this, but would they be on both sides of the road? Are there specific dimensions? And, where would they lead to as, there's main sidewalks in the village?
that's really, I think, yeah, that would be a reason, yeah, a question, and whether that, it would be appropriate to have them if they're going to be a sidewalk to nowhere, or if you want to waive them because it's just not necessary where it's located.
Village was agreeable and the applicant was agreeable, could we have sidewalks built out to Forest or Scunnamunk Road?
I
Wouldn't be able to require it as,
Not
Because in the
required,
village,
but
but if
if
they're-
everybody agrees.
if everyone wanted it, I don't see
Yeah,
why not.
I
It would just
think-
require.
Yeah, I think we have to also coordinate with what the village is doing. Is the village putting,
that
Having a
I don't know.
sidewalk?
I'll have to
Yeah.
check, but I don't think there's sidewalks on Scunnamunk.
no? No, and that was, so this is going to be a public street, you're offering it for dedication.
Correct.
If there's a bus, school buses, where are kids going to be picked up?
That's a good question. The bottom.
Right, so if they're picked up at the bottom on Scunnamunk,
Cul-de-sac should be diameter for a school bus to turn.
I don't know, I don't,
Yeah, most times they won't go down a cul-de-sac, the school bus.
no, that, I
I
know
laugh 'cause
public schools.
I grew up on one and the bus did go down, so.
Not
Yeah, and
many.
I think it's, so, and when we talk about buses, I suspect that these are going to be private schools probably, right? Or is it going to be the school district?
Could be both. I don't know. Could be both. I couldn't, don't know.
Okay.
But most likely private.
Okay. That's true. We have to consider, yeah.
I mean, we don't, I was asking in terms of stormwater, because if we added the sidewalks, it changes my final
Right.
calcs.
Right,
And we would only have control up to our property line. I mean, we could try to coordinate with the development in the village, and then ultimately, we're just gonna, I think, lead people to Scunnamunk where there's nowhere else, they don't have anywhere else to go.
yeah, to me, I guess,
So-
in terms of sidewalks, right, you could get them down there, but then where do they go? But the only other consideration for me would be
It's children, yeah.
where's a bus going to pick them up? So if Monroe Woodbury buses don't go up into a cul-de-sac, the kids are going to be
Yeah.
walking down the road, although we're not talking about a huge number of houses either, and there are plenty of roads in the town that don't have sidewalks.
And it's a cul-de-sac, so it's not like it's a through road.
Exactly. So,
That's exactly the way it works on my street. It's, it's a cul-de-sac. Kids walk down to the bottom. They stand on the edge of 208, which is certainly much more heavily trafficked than
Okay, yeah, you're right.
than Scunnamunk. And
so they don't come up the cul-de-sac.
no,
Yeah.
they a long time ago they used to, but they haven't in a long time. There was some sort of change with the Monroe Woodbury system, at least, as far as where they wouldn't go up.
A few districts I know won't
Yeah.
go cul-de-sacs, so.
How long is the cul-de-sac, Jeff?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well, on the I'm the second house on the cul-de-sac, and it's a quarter mile from my house to the end of the road. So from the far end, maybe, it's almost a half a mile.
And did you say the buses are going down the
No,
cul-de-sac?
no, they are not. And I've been there 20 years. And other than for a special education pickup in one of the smaller buses, that they've done. But for general school pickup, no.
Other consideration might be for future sidewalks that on Scunnamunk.
So yours is about close to 1,300.
Yeah, that wasn't originally a cul-de-sac. It actually used to go through to the ramp, and then they closed that off to probably, let's see, 72. Late 70s, if I understand correctly. So it became a cul-de-sac. And then there's the cul-de-sac off of that as well, Jane Court. But even that's been in quite a while now. So, different standards and that sort of thing.
So, I would suggest, since we haven't really focused on this, that we think about whether sidewalks are needed. You're going to have paved streets, curbs and gutters, distribution system, fire hydrants. I mean, a lot of this is just,
Yeah,
you have to have it.
Yeah,
So
the only one on this list was. but
Is
we
the
hadn't-
sidewalks.
Were the sidewalks we hadn't really
Yeah,
touched upon.
yep. Okay. So we'll address that next time.
Okay. I can't finish the SWIP without it.
Oh.
So if you'd like, I'll just take into account in the SWIP possible sidewalks. So the drainage system just be slightly larger, that's all.
Yeah, do you think it'll be measurably?
For this system, yes, but we'll see. If I can just squeeze them in, and if they work, great. If not, then we'll have to talk about it.
That affect your impervious
That's right,
calculation?
yeah. Especially if you want them on both sides.
So I think to be able to answer, it sounds like Monroe Woodbury doesn't go up there. I don't know who's going to go up there. So I think that's part of the
It
consideration.
only makes sense to just assume that that they won't go up there.
Yeah, if we assume that they're not going to go out up there, then we know the kids are going to be walking down. And so I think it becomes a question of whether, we think that they need to be on a sidewalk or not for the number of houses that are there. And I think it'd be useful to know what's going on in the village of Monroe. Again, because you could build the sidewalk and then boom, you're not on sidewalks again.
Correct.
So maybe you could do a little research as to those subdivisions, what's happening.
Yeah, I'll pull the file map for that subdivision.
Yeah, and then just send that to us, and then Noreen can always circulate around the information to all of us.
Okay, and in the meantime, I'll include the sidewalks in the calculations, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
But to help John a little bit, would the board be okay with just one side of sidewalks?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
don't think it has to be
All right.
two.
To the bulb, and then stop at the start of the bulb?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, great.
I don't even know that it has to go around the bulb.
Exactly,
Yeah, I think it could just be coming,
Okay,
yeah.
To the start of it, yeah.
thanks.
Anything else, Sean? Ashley?
So nothing really new that we haven't discussed about, and I know John wasn't here at the last meeting, so I shared some of those comments that I had made at the last one. The only other thing, which I know we've discussed at some point, but is the Lot 1 with the open space, and that has to be held by either a homeowners association or one or more. It's going to be owned by the private landowner, but the conservation easement itself is going to be needing to be held by either the town or someone else that's acceptable to the town. So that may be something just to be aware of that and reach out to the town at some point, whether they'd be, they want to hold it or
Okay.
if they want someone else to. Everything else is really that's the things you're waiting on in order to complete seeker. Did it go to the county? Okay. We haven't gotten anything back from the county yet, but it's been referred, so that's another item we're waiting on.
When was it referred? Last week. Oh, okay. Okay.
I don't remember the date.
Okay, so we're still waiting for that then.
Yep.
Board members, do you have any comments? Jason? No? Jeff? I don't have any comments. No? No? Pat? No? All right.
All right.
So we'll see you next month, and then you'll be submitting the additional information. Again, you're still working, you have to do the pump test anyway still, right? Yeah.
Yeah, pump
And-
test and quality, yes.
And you're coordinating that with Frank Getchell's office?
Correct.
Okay, great. All right.
Is it necessary for me to be here Tuesday for the letter to the
I-
ZBA?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I don't mind coming to see you guys, but no. I have another meeting, so.
Okay, yeah, I don't think so. And we could always get a draft out in advance if we're, we're still going to have to pass it. There may be,
But I
we
could
don't know if
send the
there'll be
draft to
revisions.
John beforehand, that way.
Yeah.
Just so you have a sense of
Anyone
where.
else I send would have no idea anyway, so it's okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Still a little light out. All right, next item on the agenda is Orange County West.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, board members.
Good evening.
How are you?
Introduce yourself.
My name's Patrick Brady, engineer for the applicant, and we have,
My name is Brian Gibson. I work for Fabricant Lippman and Frischberg, who are the attorneys for the applicant.
So, let me just get a map up real quick. Hold on a second. Did you send us the digital version of, yeah, that's what I thought.
I believe we did.
Yeah, I actually thought I added it to this, so the question, I have two here, I don't know why. All right, there we go.
I can forward an email.
I have it. I don't know why I created two subdirectories. I need a vacation. All right. So we have that up. So, Pat, why don't you describe what's being proposed here?
Sure. Well, we were here about a month ago. There's roughly 13 existing tax lots, and what we're proposing to do is combine them and create two new lots, two building lots. The project is served by private roads, Palmer Drive. At the last meeting, the board asked if we could show proposed houses and driveways. Also, the property will be served by public sewer and individual wells. So we had done that with the sheet 2, which you have before you. We do know we need a variance for 280A for not frontage on a public road. Sean, in his comments, which we'll get to, but question the area. I also left it this way.
Lot 2.
For Lot 2. Now, as you know, in your regulations, there's a net area, and we deducted for the steep slopes that it's shaded. Now, I can achieve the minimum area requirement, but it makes an awkwardly created lot. So I was kind of going to defer that to the board and how they wanted to see that property line, since I'm going to the ZBA anyway. And if the board preferred this particular layout, we'd ask for a second variance. Otherwise, it would be like a diagonal line across the property from to the upper left. So that I kind of leave it at your discretion, the recommendation. some of the comments I want to address with Sean's comments for clarification. I don't know if you want to let him read his first.
Yeah, why don't we have, Sean usually runs through his comments, and then you can respond or ask for the clarifications.
So the first two were just corrections noted for the bulk table and the zone. The third, I did note that the applicant will need 2 ADA variances for each of the lots, since the private roads aren't improved to the private road spec, as well as the net lot area variance for Lot 2 as it's currently proposed. So for the first one that I wanted to clarify with the applicant is the proposed lot line to the center of Palmer Avenue didn't appear to be directly in the center. I just wanted to make sure that that was correct and that the area calculated correctly.
Also, for a second, I want to navigate to where the lot is. You're over by Walton?
Yeah, if you go,
Around
go
Lake,
to
over
the
here.
north. Yeah.
Right over here, right?
Yep.
All right, over,
Right
okay,
there.
there we go. We have some context. All right, so let me go switch back to the plan. Okay, Sean, go ahead.
So I don't know if north is oriented to the top of the page, but it would be Lot 1, the right-hand side. Yes, down at the bottom where it goes through the right-of-way of Palmer Avenue.
Over in here?
Right, that vertical line, yep. Just wanted to make sure that that line was directly in the center so that the area was correct, calculated correctly.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm that with the surveyor.
Okay.
What the lines we've shown here were from an actual survey,
Okay,
and we did make an adjustment along Spring Street as recommended by both councils, that the deeds did go to the center line of the paper street, so.
so then,
I'll check that.
okay, I also had a question on the basically to the left of that lot. I wasn't sure if that was nope, not the building envelope, the actual lot line, proposed lot line.
The solid line was the surveyed line from the surveyor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that that was,
Nope.
it looked like it was going over top of chain link fence. It might have been the wrong line, but.
No, valid question.
So you're saying the solid line is the proposed line?
The solid line is the existing property line.
Okay.
It kind of offsets that tax lot line. You can see,
Left?
yeah, to the left, like where it says 30-yard setback.
There's a
So-
utility pole in it?
So we have this is the, kind of the paper street, right?
Right,
All right, so this solid line is proposed?
correct.
Okay.
Well, no, that would be existing.
I guess that's part of the question, because this here is sort of this paper street between here and
So
here?
those were offered but never taken
Right.
by the town?
They own to the center line, but that it appears that it's more than the center line where that lot line's drawn.
Okay.
Right.
Does the tax map help for this property? Would it help showing the lines? No?
Not for me.
I think that from the map, it appears as if the surveyor has drawn a property line, which is an exterior property line, that isn't in the middle of Palmer. And we don't have an explanation for that, but we'll have to contact the surveyor and find out why he took that position, and then either have him defend it or correct it.
Right.
So I guess part of the, looking at this, I wasn't at the last meeting, it looks like, is there a sewer going through?
There's an existing sewer between, if you see the heavy shaded area, that's the existing,
Right.
that's the existing roadway of Palmer.
Right
That's
here.
Yep, then if you went up right there, whoop, a little higher, that's an existing sewer manhole. That's there now.
So the way this is drawn, does this mean that one of the proposed lots, the sewer ends up being on the lot, within the lot, for the other homes?
It's technically in that paper right-of-way.
Yeah.
The right-of-way of Palmer. It's on a property, but it's within the right-of-way, paper street. So I mean,
Typically, I would
getting at-
suggest that the applicant provide an easement to
Yeah.
the benefit of the county to maintain that sewer.
Yeah, so within the portion that may be the current paper street, there may need to be some kind of easement to allow them to come in?
But it can only be on the portion that the applicant owns, you know?
Correct, right. And so also right now, the way the paving is done, it looks like, portions of the access for all these homes are going onto this lot.
Yes. I mean, this development probably was a summer vacation home back in the 50s, maybe, 40s, so, and it was private roads at the time when they constructed, and it still is, and so they kind of just built it. And we're just trying to end the project, so there's no more future development after this.
All right, Sean, why don't you continue? Thank you.
The Lot 1 side yard along, that's Palmer, that runs north, right? They propose it as a 35-foot side yard on Lot 1 to the right. That setback they propose as a side yard, I think that should be a front yard since it is technically on a portion of the private road.
If you go to sheet 2, when I looked it up, if you look, and correct me if I'm wrong, section 57-3, it's front corner, it deals with corner lots, and I believe it states that the applicant or the board can specify which would be the front yard. So if you could see how we placed the house in the driveway, that's why I'd call the one to the south the front yard, and the one to the right would be, or the east would be the side yard. If I did have 50 feet, that would make that building envelope smaller, or we could probably turn the house sideways and have it face Palmer, but I think, planning development-wise, it's best to access the existing roadway as shown than to come off on the hillside.
So you are correct as far as setting the front yard, but there's a provision, 5739B, and that says that when you have frontage on two streets or you're at a corner lot, you have to still meet the front yard setback for that side yard. So even though that's not technically the front yard setback of 50 feet still applies. So if you wanted either to modify the plan, I don't know, it sounds like that might present some issues for you, or another variance would be required for that.
No, it can be done. It's just, like I said, that house would have to then be rotated, because the building envelope would get a little narrower. But I think we could do it without a variance. I'm sorry.
So to help you out, I think that you're proposing a rear yard for the top of the page setback. I think that's a side yard, not a rear yard, since the code only provides for one rear yard, and I think that would be the one all the way at the top.
Which we've called out.
No, so
Yeah.
not that jut out, that would be a side yard. If you continue up the page, the one all the way at the top would be the rear.
So what you're showing right there on that, you're showing down where you just were, you're showing a rear yard from that lot line that abuts Lot 2. So before, I don't know how to really.
So I'd have two
so
side yards?
that would actually
That
be
would
a
be a
side yard.
No rear yard.
The rear yard's
The rear
all the
yard
way in
would
the
be all
back.
the way to the top.
Oh, okay.
Because the way the code reads, you have
I
one,
get it.
you only have one rear yard, and then everything else is a side yard.
Okay.
And the rear yard is somewhere up in here.
Correct, right.
That's fine.
So both lots propose parking in the front yard, which is prohibited in the code.
Well, can I question that one? So in your, in the section 57 dash, it's 38, I believe, not 39. That's, it says accessory structures and uses. So parking for a house, to me, is not an accessory use. You know, it's a driveway, and we've...
If I can, I'm sorry, just to, because this has come up before, this specific provision, and there's another provision, I'm trying to find it, but I believe it's in the parking section that specifically says parking areas have to comply with that 57, whatever you just said.
But the houses will also have driveways, so, you know...
But it just can't be in the...
Garages. So, I mean, what's shown there, it's not intended to be a parking area, but a turnaround for the cars.
This can't be in the front yard setback, it can be in the...
Well, I don't know if you've been down Palmer or on any of those streets, everybody's in their front yard, so, I mean, it's, if that's a variance I gotta get, then,
Excuse me, just as clarification, what part of the driveway are you saying constitutes parking as opposed to a driveway to a garage?
Part that's parallel to the street.
So it's just the turnaround that you're declaring to be a...
Turnaround or parking area, yes.
So if we eliminate the turnaround, does that solve the problem?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think if it was side-loaded, or if you get rid of that parking little area, then I think it takes care of the problem. But the reality is, if you're going to want them to park there, then you might as well go for a variance.
well, I don't necessarily want them to park there, but I think it's safer to have an area where someone can back out of their driveway, turn around and be able to pull out of their driveway.
Yeah, I think the way the code is written, the expectation would be that it'd be like a side-loaded garage, so that they're coming out, and then they're not, because I understand the need for a turnaround, but if it's side-loaded, they're coming out of the garage, right? You have a pad there,
Right.
and then they come out.
So specifically for Lot 1, if you're going to turn the house so it's facing Palmer,
I have 2 front yards. I'm not gonna park on the uphill side. You know what I'm saying? The garage and driveway are not gonna be, the property rises.
with the driveway in the same location, I was going to say, move the house up the page and put the turnaround within the building envelope.
But I'm still in the front yard.
No, he's saying that if it's in the building envelope, then it's not in the front yard.
Correct.
And now
It's not a matter of being in the front yard, it's a matter of being in the front yard setback.
Oh, so I could even just move the house back.
Right.
50 feet, it has to be with,
Now, for Lot 2, if we could, Lot 2, if we could just take a look at that one. What the intention was for that was to provide for an emergency turnaround. If you look at, zoom in on
Chip
my...
that house to the right and move the turnaround so it was a side load garage?
I could slide the house, but that area was intended for emergency turnaround, you know, if a fire truck had to get up there, an ambulance or whatever, because there's no cul-de-sac, and I don't...
I think the ZBA will, opine on the turnaround since you'll need the 280A, so.
Okay.
These are private roads.
Yes.
Okay.
So by moving the house on Lot 2 to the right, and bringing the emergency turnaround up until the building envelope, we're okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Could you just repeat that for the minutes? Because I know we're going to be dealing with this later.
I'm sorry.
You gotta repeat the mic.
Oh, I
Thank you.
beg
If you
your
could just
pardon.
repeat what you were saying.
I was just clarifying, I think what we had already been told, but it wasn't clear to me, that by moving the house on Lot 2 to the right, we can create an area within the building lot where we can place the turnaround and be in compliance. Okay.
Yes. So actually, I have a question. So right now, we have sort of a front yard in the front where the garage is coming off of, right?
For Lot 1?
For Lot 1. Then we have another front yard because the road is running alongside it.
requires a front yard setback, but it's not technically a front yard.
Okay. So in terms of the parking, you have the house oriented toward
Richard.
Spring. No, sorry, you're right. This one. Orchard Street. Can the house be, I'm just asking a question, could the house have been oriented off of Palmer? Because then you'd have sort of kind of more land area to be able to put the garage, a turnaround. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm asking if you thought about that.
It can. It would make a smaller rear yard,
Okay,
because if you spun the house around, they'd have less backyard.
gotcha.
But, we'll comply. I'll adjust the 35 to the 50. We'll fix the building envelope. We'll make sure that the turnaround for the driveways are outside of the front yard requirements.
Make it a
Okay.
shotgun house. Make it a shotgun house. Isn't that what they call the long skinny ones?
Yeah. Yes. They used to have them in New Orleans and down south.
Yeah. So just cleaning up the plans, just making sure that the line types are correct. It was hard to tell between the gas line and the overhead and the sanitary. And then obviously we'll need to show the proposed connections for the sewer, get input from the county on those. And then the existing well on Lot 2, that's going to serve the proposed house?
Yes.
Okay. And then, the adjacent building next to Lot 1, it wasn't clear to me that the end of the house is shown. Is that
Yeah,
true?
the line got turned off, but the hatching is the edge of the house.
Edge of the house, okay.
Yes. With regard to the sewer, I have shown just generally the house sewer connections for both lots. These are just service connections. We're not extending any
Right.
sewer main, so do we need to go to the county now? Wouldn't that be during building permit process? Because it just, there's no sewer main extension.
So there has been, the town's received a letter about, as far as capacity and sewer from the county, and the way the letter was written, it indicated it only applied to out-of-district users, so if you're in Orange County Sewer District 1, it shouldn't be an issue, but on another subdivision that is actually in Orange County Sewer District 1, the county did come back with some comments, so we definitely want to refer it, to the county before.
And the town will do the referral. Do you need me to do that, or do you? Okay.
Kent does it.
Question, because I wasn't here last month. This line right here, see where I have my cursor?
Yes.
Is that right now a lot line?
No, that's an existing tax lot line.
So this is a dwelling?
Correct.
What is this sitting on?
You mean, is it a foundation?
No, sorry, no. Like, what's the lot area that it's sitting on? What corresponds to 4-3-3?
It's an undersized lot, very undersized. The dashed line to the left of the existing building on 433 is the property line.
This is the property line here.
Yes.
Isn't this the property line on this side?
Not according to our surveyor. That's what we need to verify.
Okay.
I think if I could
that's what
just,
I brought up.
the legend and the way the lines are, it's not really clear what, I guess, then the difference is between a property line and a tax lot line. And also the thick black line, it's called a wall in your legend, but it looks like that would actually be the proposed property line, so.
Oh, yeah, it's just the scale. The wall is actually little circles, and then if you look in the upper left, there is a wall. So it's the scaling of we'll fix the line type so it's clearer.
Yeah, just to make it clear, thank you.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
But so in essence, right now, the surveyor is saying that's where the lot line is. Were there monuments or anything that showed that's the actual, that the black, let's say, is the actual lot line versus where the tax lot is showing it?
I don't know. We were presented with the survey,
Okay.
certified survey from a licensed land surveyor, and the heavy lines you see, besides the interior line between the proposed Lot 1 and 2 are the property lines. And the lighter lines that are dashed would be property lines exterior to the property and tax lot lines within the property.
Okay.
We'll fix that line type so you get a better understanding for what's existing as a property line and what's a tax lot line.
And the survey showed the buildings relative to those lot lines? The survey that was done for this?
Yes, all the buildings you see there that are crosshatched were located during the survey. Actually, that's the survey, that was the original survey.
So, maybe I didn't rotate. So here's Orchard down here.
You got it right now, yeah.
Okay. So this is what they're showing,
Correct.
or sorry, they're showing this as the lot line as opposed to right here.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'm going to go back to the site plan. Are there,
I don't have anything.
okay. Ashley?
Just a other things. If you could add the revision dates to the map, I didn't see them on there.
2 would be new, but you're correct. Sheet 1 should have a revision, yeah.
Also on the map, the bulk table you have where you show the, what you're providing for each lot, if you could actually give the numbers as far as the setbacks and all of that.
Yeah, I got stuck in Blooming Grove with their, as required.
I understand.
Some comments on the notes. I know we had discussed about, because it's an odd situation where you're kind of merging the lots and then also abandoning some of these paper streets. So, and I could send you, my suggested language about that, how to just clean it up and make it clear. I think it would also be helpful if you show on the map pointing to, these lots are all being merged, that kind of thing. But I could.
I made an attempt with note 13.
No, I saw, yeah, I saw, and that was good. I just have, just to make it clearer, just so it's down the line, and I could send you that language, no
Okay,
problem.
thank you.
I think we talked about, the tree plan we had talked about for the areas of disturbance, that's under Town Code 5784, that'll ultimately be required. The standard subdivision notes, we talked about house relocation notes, number of bedrooms, and rec fees. Those are all things, obviously, down the line. The first thing that'll be required is the variances. And seeker, I don't believe you declared intent, but it is an unlisted action.
We have to decide if we want to do unlisted, if we want to do coordinated. If we don't do coordinated, this can go off to the ZBA, and they do their own seeker review. And then we would do it on the site plan and the subdivision. There's sort of pros and cons to that, because if we're doing the coordinated review, then you'll advance all the way through the ZBA, but then you can't, move on until we finished our seeker review. Although this isn't a big application, so.
This application hinges on the ZBA.
Yeah.
May make sense. You still seek, input from the county about the sewer and those types of things that'll be relevant to your seeker, but you just won't be.
They would do their
lead.
own seeker for the, yeah. So, given the fact that you need all these variances, I'm thinking of, because it's unlisted, doing uncoordinated review, because then I think it may be just more efficient for you to stay with that board for your seeker, for your variances.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, so does anybody have any thoughts on that? Coordinated versus uncoordinated? No? 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 Okay. So I think then I will make a motion that we determine this proposed action. We designate it an unlisted action, and that we will conduct uncoordinated review for the project. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Jason seconds. Noreen?
Jason Swinsky,
Aye.
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Bonnie Francis,
Aye.
Anthony Caro,
Aye.
John Allegro,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
and Lisa is absent.
Okay, so the motion carries, so you'll be able to, once we kind of get this settled, go off to the ZBA and seek your variances, and they can do their own seeker process. Anything else, Ashley?
Oh, that's it. I don't know if the board wants to see the revised plan before referring them to the ZBA to know what I don't think we know yet what variances are going to be required, definitely, or how the plans are going to be revised.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to discuss the proposed line?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear we needed 280A. The other one was the area for the total net area. As I said earlier, we could adjust the line where I could make the area requirement. However, it just creates this awkward-looking lot. And it's, as you can see, it's a steep bank, heavily wooded site, so there'll be no development up there. So I just kind of defer to the board as to see how they want the property line, and if
We have an awkward-looking lot with Lot 1, so.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if that should just be one big back lot and then a smaller lot, because does it really matter to you all whether all that land is attached to one versus the other? So if you just cut the line going straight across for proposed Lot 2, all that land on Lot 1 would just be on one lot. And then Lot
Yeah, that would be perfect. I mean,
Lot 1 would just be a smaller lot, although it's going to be more of a variance. I guess I'm just wondering whether it makes more sense, though, to have all that land on one lot. I don't know. I think, you know what, let us think about it. I think
All
just...
right. I agree with you. I just, as you're alluding to, when I get to the ZBA, it's a greater variance.
Right.
But it is better planning in this particular instance.
Yeah, because all the other, lots around that bottom lot, they are, they're all small.
Correct.
So it's not as if you're creating a lot that's substantially out of character with that area, but,
I would just ask if that's your preference, that you kind of support me and when I go to the ZBA with that.
I mean, we can always, if the board wants, because we've done it before, if anyone feels strongly about it and this is where we're going. Otherwise, you could leave it as it is and let the ZBA decide, what makes sense. But I guess the other thing would be then related to that, there would be no plans to continue any further grading, any other activities in the steep slope area?
Yeah, we'd be willing to put whatever requirements the board, conservation easement, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's no intent to
Further subdivide?
to further do anything there. Actually, years ago, I did the subdivision to the right, Cromwell Meadows, and that whole hillside is in a conservation easement, so.
Okay.
And I'm sure the applicant would be amenable to that, because it should be forever green up there.
Okay. All right, so let us just give us one more month to take a look at it, and we'll figure it out, and then we can be prepared to make a recommendation to the ZBA. I don't know, Pat, if you can, not to spend a lot of time, but if you wanted to have the alternative, what that might look like, I don't know if you could create like a quick map.
Yes, that would be easy enough. And
Okay.
we'll clean up a bunch of the comments that were addressed tonight and
Okay.
get it in for your review.
And then maybe just have an alternative, and then we'll be able to look at that and
Yeah, maybe 3, maybe this one on the angle. Oops.
Yeah, that's easy enough. We'll give you 3. I can give you, you'll have this one. I'll show you one where we can meet the net area requirement for boat lots, and then I'll show you one where if we just
literally go
leave
across.
that, go right across.
Okay, sounds good. Board members, other comments?
I have a question, and I'm sorry if you covered this or I missed it, but with regards to the paper streets and the parcels, and they're filed with the county, is there an administrative process to clean all that up that they would be involved with?
So that's one thing that I was talking about before about the map notes, and what this map is going to say is that these paper streets, because right now they're still held privately, so they're still owned by these property owners, that the map is going to be merging the various lots and also merging and abandoning these paper streets that are shown on file, so that'll be in the county's records.
That's just an administrative procedure?
I don't know that they would review anything substantively. It would just be the filing, just like filing any subdivision map.
And the property that goes between the existing houses, who has the ownership of those paper streets?
They're
The paper
on
streets.
Palmer, so the adjacent, the property owners that abut the paper street, they're the ones that own to the center line. So that's why on Spring Street, which is up there, this property owner only owns down to the center line, and then the abutting on the bottom there own the other half. So that's how it'll remain. And on Palmer now, it's split between this property owner and then the one to the right there.
So we have the one line going to the center line, or we're talking about it going to possibly the center line of the paper street, but on that lot, the bottom, it's not going to the center of the street. And I'm not trying to say that it should, but if we're not doing that on one, why are we doing it on the other than to get driveway access? But the driveway access is coming off of an existing paper street anyway. Like, do we need to have that line in the center if we're not doing it on the other? You know what I'm saying, Pat?
Very good question. Very good question. I was thinking of that earlier, and I'm going to ask the surveyor. I think that should be shown on halfway.
Yeah, I
think
don't know.
so. The big issue there,
I'm not sure.
The issue that came up at the last meeting was it was important to show that Spring Street because that's not an improved road. So we wanted to show that they were only merging half of that unimproved paper street. So, and I don't believe that the survey originally showed the line to the center of Palmer. I think that was something that's been added. So that might be, because that's something that's covered by the deeds. The deeds say the abutting owners own to the center line.
Oh, okay.
So it's in the chain of title that way. So I don't know that it's usually shown on the map.
Do we all have the deeds? Did you send those, Noreen? Or do you have those, the deeds?
Whatever came in.
I had just looked them up on the county. I could
Yeah.
download them, or if you have, do you have the deeds?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Do you have copies of the deeds?
Of our deed?
Yes.
Yes,
If you could just provide those, please?
sure.
And in particular, you know, so
Or I may have actually downloaded, I think I do have one that I had downloaded from the county clerks.
You're saying why doesn't the line go to the center of Orchard?
or consistently, either they both go to the center line of the paper street or they don't. And I think it
Right.
depends a little bit on the paper street, the fact that, you know, that's where the deeds come in. Do the deeds say you essentially own to the center line, or are those paper streets almost like kind of no man's land? Because they were really access for all the homes there, and they've kind of evolved that way. And is it better to actually have the line running through the center line of that paper street or not?
Gives me more area.
But, I think, yeah, I think I'm more concerned about the fact that there are homeowners there. And it is going to the center line, so they're going to have access, but, again, does it really say that you have the ability to go to the center line? Do your deeds say that? And I don't know.
And I do have it, I could read it.
Okay.
It says, together with all the right, title, and interest of the party of the first part, in and to the streets adjoining the premises to the center of said streets.
Okay.
Subject only to the use thereof, if any, for street purposes.
So then, if that's the case,
But as far as the survey question goes, I just don't know whether that makes, I know we wanted it for that Spring Street because that's not actually, that one's being abandoned, that
Okay.
portion of it.
Right.
But for the ones that are already improved, I don't know that it's necessary or that it's, I don't know which way is better.
Yeah.
More of a survey
Yeah.
question,
think-
which,
I think from
Yeah, 'cause the deed would
a
just
perspective here
be in the
that
legal
these
description.
issues about, what crosses my mind, what somebody might be worried about is by virtue of our ownership in getting this subdivision, are we somehow going to interfere with the
Right.
access rights of
Right.
of adjoining properties?
right,
So I think that we're going to end up having to have a declaration here to cover the conservation easement that we're thinking about, and also some of these other aspects that we've been discussing about non-development and what have you. So we can insert into the declaration easements that will preserve the right-of-ways that are now developed. Particularly, I'm looking at how Palmer Street and is that Spring Street at the bottom? Orchard at the bottom, cross our meander outside of the designated street area, and we can address those problems in a declaration so everybody's access is protected.
You would need agreement from all the adjacent property owners? I mean,
No,
well, it would really be more of an easement from this property owner saying, I'm allowing everyone to continue using this, which there may already be one, whether written or by necessity, because these people have been using the roads for however long. But that would be, to make it clear in the county records that they're, acknowledging that everyone has the right to use those.
Is there an HOA here, some kind of homeowners association? We had, if you recall, I remember we were at the tail end of it. I don't even think this board approved it, but remember the other subdivision that this was like there were same.
There was an existing, is there a maintenance agreement for the private roads? Do you know?
I'm not acquainted with it, if there is.
Okay, because that's something that did become an issue. I think there was there an existing agreement that then
Because the
they were going to, I
homeowners,
think, change it to improve the road more? Or,
yeah, the homeowners, so there was another subdivision comparable to this where someone wanted to subdivide the lots. And they were going to do multiple lots. They ended up having to do a tremendous amount of improvements. And I don't know that it was becoming a town road. It just there were a lot of improvements that had to be made. And there were homeowners that were coming out because there was some kind of agreement where it gave them kind of the right to come out and
an issue too where they needed to do improvements where the owners owned portions of
Yeah.
the right of way. There was, I know it was at that.
unless
Right when I
maybe they were going
came
to
on to
become
represent the board,
maybe they
so
were
I'm
going to
not-
become public roads. I just
I
think
think
we
they were
should
gonna
take a
be-
look at that too,
I think
because
they were going to become public roads.
they
I don't
weren't
think-
going to.
I don't even think that was the issue. The homeowners seemed to object to anything being done on their portion that would improve what they said was the biggest problem on their road, which was the flow of water out of Chester and down their roads and into their front yards. And
Right.
then
Yeah.
the builder was sort of proposing to fix all that, and they wanted it fixed, but they didn't want anything done.
I don't recall
Is-
if the
is
town.
the way I
don't recall if the town at that.
That's a pretty good synopsis of how that went down.
I don't know if the town at that point, and again, because this sort of predated us, we were at the tail end, and ultimately the developer decided to abandon, the whole concept, and just it's a series of lot line changes, so that he stayed with the same number of lots, but they were more developable, and then they didn't have to do all these improvements. But I'm wondering what triggered all the improvements, because of the fact, were they staying private, or were they becoming public?
It
Because,
may have been a change in were they going to be building them to the private road spec maybe, and that's
I
why?
think that's what it was.
Which,
I don't,
but I don't know why they
280.
didn't go for a 288, because I know that,
Avoid the 280.
yeah, but they had a prior 280A, so
Okay.
it seemed a little complicated.
maybe just for this, also take a look back at that one, because I don't want us to do something that's way out, either they could have done it differently back then, and we're doing what's appropriate, but I just sort of want us to remember that history, because there was a lot that went on with it. Okay. So I think there's some cleanup items that we'll take care of. You'll do the alternatives. We'll take a look at sort of those lot lines, what makes sense in terms of then kind of shared use of these private roads. And again, I was just more concerned about consistency. Maybe it's not all that important, but I just kind of want to take a look at that a little bit more. And I think we've already declared ourselves, or declared an unlisted action. We'll do uncoordinated review. When you come back, we can kind of figure out the course of action and then refer you over to the ZBA, and they're going to decide ultimately how many lots you get.
Very, very good, thank you.
All right. Anything else, board members? Pat, nothing? John, you're good? You're good, Anthony? You're good, good? Okay. All right, thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
All right, so the last items on our agenda are the minutes, and I have a quick question for Noreen. So in the minutes, there were a lot of inaudible.
Most of it was Ashley, because
I was on
You
Zoom,
were on
I
the
think, because
Zoom?
I had been away, so I wasn't allowed out. I had to stay
Right.
home for those ones.
You weren't allowed out of your wherever.
So I did, she sent them to me, I tried to add where I could, and some of them I just
Yeah.
couldn't recall,
Okay.
but
So there's still a lot of inaudibles, and just as a question, when that happens, if we're writing minutes, do we just not even say that it was inaudible, or is it better to say it was inaudible, so that
I
there's,
was told by the town board I should say inaudible.
okay, that's what
Then
they're
if somebody
recommending?
goes and watches the video and they go, well, why aren't they recording? Well, it's not that we're not recording, that we're not talking into our mics, so
Right.
we can't hear. Because these mics, as you can hear, it echoes through.
Right,
So when I move away from it, I get nothing.
okay,
I can pick up some things, like I turn the volume up max, and I can pick up a word or two, but I don't get much at all.
okay,
So, but I did, Ashley resent me the one for the 16th. I fixed them, but I don't think I resent them to you guys with her inaudibles filled in.
oh, okay, so maybe, because there
do-
was one that had a lot of inaudibles, I thought it was maybe the 16th.
I redid that
think that one
one
did
the
have
other day,
more.
so I can resend it, and if you want, we can do these on Tuesday.
Yeah, let's do these both on Tuesday.
Okay, because
And-
you should have had the 11th. I redid the inaudible, and I sent that one.
So the one I looked at, one of them had a lot of
The
inaudibles.
16th.
Okay, so let's.
But I'll resend both of them tomorrow with
Okay.
the 2 revisions that Ashley gave me.
Okay.
Because they've been completed.
So now my question is this, because what helps if we get the minutes sooner is that we'll remember the conversation a bit
Right.
too. So what's the process, like how are you going about putting the minutes together? Because I want to find out how soon we can get them after the meeting.
Now, I type during the meeting, but then I go back and I listen to, or I handwrite, depending on which is faster.
Okay,
And I go back and I listen to the videos, and then I add things that I miss, or sometimes my typing is like, oh, what did I even type here? It's out of order, and then I try to put everything into order before I get it to you. But I have all of it, so
when do you get the video?
usually the next day,
Okay,
but you take a 2-hour meeting, and it could take me a full day minimum to do, because you have to go back and forth multiple times to get everything. So between the 3 board meetings that I have, they do take a long time.
When is your other board meeting? When do the ZBA board meetings fall?
4th Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so that's
So they're almost
after
like
hours.
3 weeks in a row I have board meetings.
So we should try and get the minutes, the draft, a week. Because
I'm working on
actually,
catching up,
and
right.
actually, what's the time frame? They're actually supposed to, the only thing that has to be filed as far as minutes are, and I don't know that it matters here because we do video.
Mm-hmm.
But
So technically, you don't need to legally approve the minutes, but that's always
Right.
what you should do, because that is the board saying this is, what
Right.
happened. But it's just really the draft minutes that need to be filed, and I'm not sure
I forget if it's 5 days.
what the,
I thought it was 5 days.
What
It's
the
either
time-
5
I
or
thought it was
7.
2 weeks.
I wanted to say
Yeah,
2
I think
weeks.
2
Oh, is
as
it 2
well.
weeks?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think that's a rule that's observed more in the breach than the,
I want to say it's sooner than that.
I think
Oh,
it
no,
might
I'm thinking
depend
of
on if it's a
filing of-
decision,
of
if it's
resolutions.
something, I was going to say, if
Yeah.
it's something with the
I was gonna say
decision that's been
resolutions is
approved.
5.
Yeah, I'd have to look at,
And I
know
don't
if
know
it's
whether
open.
the town has something separate that.
Yeah, but just because if I'm looking at something from March, I'm unlikely to remember. So I might be able to pick up some stuff that was inaudible. So really like to try and get them a week after the meeting. Yeah, well, it's a week. It's,
Busy, my office is very busy as well. I'm one person down there.
so let's try and do it just so we don't, then we can remember and then we can get them to you quickly. So then we're just really, not having to go through these and sift through these at the meeting because we got them in advance.
Hopefully, we don't have much more inaudible since we've all been here. So,
Yeah,
You've been keeping us all
on our mics.
attached to our mics.
yes, we're getting
Feel like
better at
a
that for sure.
Teacher.
All right, so I would just suggest if everybody's okay, let's do the minutes at the next meeting if that's okay? Yes, okay. And then Noreen, we are waiting for the April minutes too, because I want to really catch up with these so that we're not back doing this.
I know.
All right, okay. Anything else, board members, you want to bring up? Nope, we're good? All right, so with that, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I made the motion last.
I'll make
Did
that
you
motion.
really?
I did.
Wow. May I have a second? Second?
Second.
All right. Everybody wants to adjourn the meeting, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.